It's time for No Pad Sports Talk. Stay tuned as two brothers bring you the latest from your Michigan teams and beyond in hockey, baseball, football, and more. Let's get started. Here are your hosts, JD and Steve.
Welcome to No Pad Sports Talk, where we're going to break down the Lions versus Chiefs game tonight. Tonight.
Well, last night's game, but we're doing it the next day.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, it was for Lions fans, it was a heck of a game.
It was.
Right.
We'll always take the W, no matter what. So, especially though, first game of the season, everybody watching prime time at Arrowhead, and to walk away with the W. That is awesome.
26.8 million people watched that game, according to some number I saw online today. It was actually bigger, the most watched game, first game of the year, bigger than last year's first game of the year. And that's when the Bills played the Rams.
Yeah.
So, and it was really cool because I didn't realize they had fans down at Ford Field. Did you see that? Or did you have the opportunity to hear that or see it?
I heard about it, but I only heard about it during the game. I didn't know about it beforehand, so.
Yeah, because had I known, that would have been something I think pretty cool to go and watch the game. Unfortunately, I missed most of the first quarter because I had to work. So I had it was meet the teacher night at work, and so I was there. I think I got out about 8:45. So by the time I got home, got everything turned on, the first quarter was almost over.
I actually lucked out pretty good.
Yeah?
Yeah, I was in O'Hare trying to fly home, and so there was a bar inside there, and speaking of which, I have to say this because this is the coolest thing. I seen Frank Thomas at O'Hare, so yeah, the Big Hurt was in O'Hare.
Oh, wow.
It was awesome. Like
that would have been awesome.
I was fighting, I wanted to go up there and just dude, you're awesome.
You wanted the fanboy. Really.
I really did. And I fought every instinct in my body, right? Because I didn't want to mess with the guy. He was, he was sitting at a bar. Looks like he was just, enjoying his time there. He wasn't, with anybody, don't look like. And I don't know, and part of me was like, well, you're not with anybody, right? That'd have been the time to go up and say hi. But at the same time, I don't know. I just didn't want to bother the guy, I guess. So man, it was rough. It was so hard for me not to say anything, but I didn't. I just saw him, and I was like, oh my God, that's him. And then I walked away. So, yeah. But it was cool.
This would be one of those cool moments had you had his baseball card in your bag for some reason. You just
for some weird reason, yeah.
And just sort of slid it over to him with a pin. It's like, hey, sir,
Yeah.
I'm
sorry, but I gotta take advantage, right?
Yeah, right. But that is awesome.
Yeah. Oh man, I forgot about that until I mentioned bar, right? All of a sudden, boom. But it was a whole different bar. So it wasn't the same bar that Frank Thomas was in, but there was another one that had TVs in it. If you've ever been to O'Hare, on the American side, there's this, it's like a bar and grill, really, but it's about Chicago Cubs. And so that's where I was at. So I got to watch basically the entire first half there. I then left there to go to my gate. And so now I'm watching on my phone as I'm waiting, to board, right? I board, get on the plane. I'm still watching it on my phone. And as we're taxiing out to the runway, the first half's just about over, right? So as the pilot got on and said, flight attendants prepare for takeoff or whatever, went to halftime. We flew, and of course from Chicago over there to Kalamazoo is a 25-minute flight. So by the time we landed, the only thing I missed was the kickoff of the second half and the Chiefs' first possession where they went 3 and out and punted. But I got to see the very first play of the Lions drive there. So, like, that's all I missed.
That's
Talk about perfect timing, right? Like, it was amazing.
Fantastic timing. Yeah. But, so I got a message from you that said that was a gutsy call, right?
Yeah.
And Scott, my best friend Scott, he sends me a message and was like, hey, the same thing. Basically, both of you guys at the same time, I get ding, ding, gutsy call. And I'm like, oh my God, what am I missing? So now I got to get home and I got to look it up. So we're doing commercials while the game's live. And then I'm going back, I'm like, oh, yeah. Fake punt on your, like, inside the 20.
17-yard line.
Yeah. And you go for it. That, to me, that's a game changer right there. I think the Chiefs have noticed that the Lions are not afraid.
Well, two things about that call real quick, right? It's a game changer because they got a touchdown out of it. Right?
Absolutely.
Like, if they would have went 3 and out again and punted, no big deal. It didn't mean anything.
Big deal.
But the fact that they went down there and scored a touchdown, it was 100% a game changer. It was a great drive after that. Because that was on the second drive they had. They went 3 and out. I think it was pretty sure it was 3 and out, the first possession. And they did not look really in sync. Then the second possession, again, the first 3 plays, didn't look all that great. But after they got that first down on the fake punt, it was like a whole different offense took over. And they just went down there, scored with Amon-Ra St. Brown. Awesome.
Amon-Ra first down.
Well, that time was Amon-Ra touchdown.
That time was touchdown, yeah. Yeah.
And then, but the second point I want to make about that is later on when the Lions punted again, the Chiefs kept their defense on the field. Right?
Yes, they did.
They didn't even go into like punt return formation. Just like, no, we're keeping our defense on the field. Like, that's the type of effect that fake punt had.
Absolutely. Absolutely, it did. Because I heard the announcer say that, like, the Chiefs aren't even, they got their defense on the field thinking the Lions were going to go for it because I think they only had like 2 yards to get. It was close.
It was close.
And, they went out. And then they kind of pinned them down a little bit because it was a decent punt. But, yeah, all in all, right, as I looked at that, watched the game, and I let things sink.
Mm-hmm.
Patrick Mahomes did his Patrick Mahomes thing, right? The secondary was locking down, for the most part, keeping the receivers covered, the tight ends covered, and we got a decent rush with our front four. The difference is it just kind of broke contain on a few of those times, right? The Mahomes got out. But the one thing that I think upset me the most, and had the Lions lost, I'd be livid, just livid, was that how the refs could not call the right tackle in the back. Mm-hmm. He was in the backfield.
Yeah.
And not only was he in the backfield, he was twitching all the way up until the ball is snapped, and he's leaving. And I know it doesn't look, in live speed, it looks like it's a little second. It just seems like he's that far back. And I kept talking about, like, what are they doing? And like, the Lions were they saying anything to the refs about this guy jumping off? Right? Because he only got called one time, and it was in the fourth quarter, and they were 4th and 20. And it made a 4th and 25, right? And then the camera zoomed in on him. You know what upset me the most? You could see him laughing. Because I got caught once out of 50 times, so I guess I'm all right. I was upset, right?
Yep. But let's give Aiden Hutchinson credit. Even with that being said, he still dominated. If it wasn't for him, basically playing in the backfield, and then on running plays, he moved up the line of scrimmage.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah.
So,
So he gave away the play.
he gave away the play.
Yeah.
And then, but Aiden Hutchinson still dominated him, even though he was playing in the backfield.
Yeah.
And if he wasn't playing that way, Hutchinson would have had like 4 sacks.
Absolutely.
He was.
He would have been beat off the ball. Yeah. He would have been. He was beat off the ball. Right?
Yeah.
And it just. Hutchinson had a really good game. And while the stats might not have been there, his presence was absolutely felt coming off the edge.
Yep.
And I loved how they moved him down over the guard, and he was getting pressure right up in Mahomes' face. So I loved how they moved him and dropped him down. Overall, I think the defensive front 4 looked stout.
Oh yeah.
We're just talking like the front 4; they looked great. The linebacking core, Campbell. I don't know. I know he's like 6'4", but the fact that I felt like he was already kind of moving back into his right because he was backpedaling, and that ball came across the tight end came up right in the middle, and he dove out to get that and knocked it down. Like that's what 6'5" does for you guys, or 6'4". I mean, the guy's a beast, right?
Yes.
He did get beat in some coverage. I think the ones where he got beat, he was trailing the guy and like trying to follow him, right? And it's just that's a lot for a linebacker, I think, even with his skill to do what he did. But I don't feel like the receivers got out in front of him. He was still close enough to them that he could make the tackle after the catch. Mm-hmm. Let's talk Brian Branch, right? Mahomes threw a perfect ball.
Oh yeah.
It got tipped, but Branch made a tough adjustment because he was moving in one direction and then turned his body with one hand and kind of grabbed it, right? Kind of pulled it in that way. And then just as soon as he caught it and had it secured, he was like a bullet. Shot right out of a cannon, and he was gone. Like, I'm sitting in my bed, my granddaughter's asleep, and I'm doing everything in my power right now, to keep that composure without having to wake up my granddaughter, because it took her a long time to go down. But, so Brian Branch looked great out there in coverage, right? It's these pieces that we talked about, like just those 3 draft picks, right? Even Sam Laporta has some great catches, right? Made some excellent blocks right down on the for the touchdown for David Montgomery. Mm-hmm. And he made that block as he was coming across up in the hole, and then Montgomery cut off his back for a touchdown. That's the guy, right? So to me, he's got that. I know it's early. It's one game. So please forgive me. Don't slaughter me when I say this, but it's like a Gronkowski kind of thing. He's got that big size, so he can block, right? But he also catches the ball very well.
You're gonna be slaughtered for that.
I'm gonna be slaughtered. I'm very excited. I'm hyped up about this. It was just. Like all these pieces and all these things that a lot of fans were talking about. Like, I can't believe they did this. I can't believe they did this. I can't believe they did this. And then all those pieces came together last night. And Jahmyr Gibbs, he's like a bolt of lightning. When he caught that screen and put his left foot down and turned upfield, I mean, gone. Just gone.
Well, that's what I was talking about with a lot of preseason, right? Like Gibbs played, a few plays, but it was so noticeable between him and everybody else as far as how quick he is. The guy goes from 0 to full speed in a step and a half. and he runs hard. Like he was like a little wrecking ball. I mean, not that he like knocked anybody out, but like he put his head down, he'd get hit. He just kind of spun off the guy that hit him and gained an extra 5 yards out of it. And he did that, a couple of different times. And one of them came in the fourth quarter after a penalty, and it was 1st and 15, and he got to 15 yards.
Yeah.
Right, like that was a big play because that helped run
Big
off more
play.
time.
Yes.
But but we have to kind of bring it back a little bit. We got excited. We jumped so far ahead talking about like all this good stuff, right? And a lot of it was good stuff. But there's a couple things I want to point out. One, Detroit made some good adjustments, and in the second half, Kansas City went 0 for 7 on third down. We have to mention that because that was huge.
Yeah.
I don't care that Kelsey wasn't in the game. I'm sorry. I mean, you got the best.
They have enough
quarterback in the
talent.
league,
Yeah.
and to go 0 for 7 on third down in the entire second half.
Absolutely.
No, I mean, that's awesome. And then I have to give a big call out to C.J. Gardner-Johnson, right? On that one drive, he had 2 big plays. He almost had that pick on that one third down before they punted. But he had 2 huge plays, and you get to see him just like the guy was out there balling. He was having a good time. He was jawing, right? Like, and so just to go along with all the other additions we're talking about as far as the rookies, I mean, the free agent signing, like he came through big for us.
So
So-
David Montgomery on the other side of the ball, right? Like he showed me a little. I mean, maybe he was dinged up a little bit. He was out in Chicago, but I did not expect to see the guy I saw last night. I thought we were going to see a little bit more of Jahmyr Gibbs, and it really wasn't. It was really David Montgomery's game back there, and
It was.
he was getting 3 to 5 yards a carry. I can't even remember what he averaged for the game.
Oh, it was low. It was like 3-point-something yards per carry. It was less than 4.
Because I know there were a couple of negative plays that obviously hurt. But he got him when it counted. Right?
Well, I mean, look, here's what I'll say about that. Look, I love the fact that David Montgomery put his head down and did what he had to do, right? Like, I mean, you can't take that away from the guy. But
Right.
I think and man, I might get crucified for saying this. I think it was more schematically that was the reason why he was able to get some of those big runs, especially in the fourth quarter. The way that they were, pulling the guards and the offensive line was manhandling their defensive line. I think a lot of that, like, you have to give. I mean, Montgomery, like, it's not like he didn't make moves, right? Like when he was after he got past line of scrimmage, he'd make a move on a linebacker or whatever. So like he did do well, and I don't want to take that away from him, but the run game and how it was schemed with the talent on the offensive line, I think, is what really allowed Montgomery to do what he did. So
the offensive line looked great. Right? It did. I mean, Ragnow got out, snapping the ball, and still be able to pull, right, and get out there in front of the blocks like that. Still had the tight end coming in behind him, so having that, or even the fullback and having all that lead back, getting out. Just there were little things, right? Jared Goff looked good.
Thing. We're talking about the little things. This is a big thing. After the Lions scored the touchdown, they were driving again. There was a fumble, and that was at the Kansas City 7 where he fumbled the ball at, right?
Yep.
Kansas City recovered, and then after Kansas City recovered, they only went like 5 yards on that possession when they recovered the fumble. The fact that the defense came out after a quick change of possession that way on a turnover, and held that awesome offense to 5 yards, and then got the ball back. Right, like that was awesome, and it didn't just happen then. There were multiple times that the field position, because Kansas City might drive, 25, 30 yards, then punt. Lions, especially in the third quarter, ended up only getting, 5 yards here, 11 yards there, and then they ended up punting. So
Right.
the field position was in Kansas City's favor a lot of the game. But the defense still held strong. And that's what, especially, like, the Lions of old, the same old Lions, would not have done that. They would have crumbled.
Yep.
But this Lions team did not. That goes a lot of credit to Campbell and the coaching staff being able to
Yeah.
just somehow ingrain, like, there's absolutely no quit in these guys.
Right. Uh, you're talking about the defense. I'm looking at the rush yards. Patrick Mahomes was the leading rusher that last night. All right, he had 45 yards, but we held them to a total less than 100 yards, about 90 yards, I think is what my math is coming out to be. Right?
Yep.
So 90 yards. Patrick Mahomes only threw for 226 yards, right? On a 53% clip. So, between the pressure up front and the coverage in the back, like, that is huge, right? Because, I talked about this game with some of my students before the game, and I said to him, I says, look, to me, and I probably said it on this podcast, I said, Patrick Mahomes is like the Michael Jordan of the 90s, right? Like, Patrick Mahomes can do things with the football and the field that you just don't see very often. Like that touchdown pass that he threw, right? I can't even see him. So the view from the end zone, all I saw was a hand and a ball, and it looked like he threw he threw a curveball up around the linebacker and hit the receiver in the end zone. And I says, well, Mahomes is going to get what he's going to get, but if you can stop everybody else around him, that's what you got to do. And that's kind of what happened, right? Mahomes got what Mahomes could get, and it just wasn't enough.
I want to, and this kind of goes to what we're talking about here. But I want to announce my player of the game. All right. I think the Lions game ball was given to Kadarius Toney.
Kadarius Toney.
But he just kept dropping it, so he never actually got it. But but aside from that, for real, I mean, but I had to bring this up because you were mentioning what made you angry, and I got to mention what made me angry. I know you had work today. I did not. I had today off, so what I did is I immediately started watching some of the national media stuff. Right? What are they saying about the Lions? What are they saying about the Chiefs? And that is what made me angry. Because from the stuff that I watched. Good Morning Football, Skip Bayless, that kind of stuff, right? Like from the what they were saying was pretty much this. It was, well, we can't take anything away from the Lions. They played a good game, but they only won by 1 point, and if Kelsey was in there, Kansas City would have won, right? Because they had all these drop passes. And, Mahomes, he played good enough to win. So it wasn't really Mahomes' fault. What made me angry is they were doing nothing but making excuses for Kansas City, Mahomes, and everything else, right? They were basically saying, they were still basically crapping on the Lions. They didn't, Lions, we can't take anything away from them. They played well, but... No, that is taken away from the Lions. That's exactly what you're doing.
Yeah.
And that's what made me angry. Now, I know, Campbell has the locker room. He's going to be, who gives a crap what these people say, right? Who gives a crap what I say? You know, I'm just some guy with a microphone posting videos on YouTube. Like nobody's really going to care what I have to say. But but the point though is these guys could not just sit there and say what you had said, right? The pressure getting to Mahomes constantly, like. They talked about the ball that he underthrew, the deep ball.
Yeah,
Oh, Mahomes
that
doesn't
skipped.
underthrow anybody, right?
No.
And so they're saying, you know, oh, it's you know, but they didn't give the credit to the Lions. He was getting ready to be hit by. He stepped up in the pocket. I forgot who it was coming around. It might have been Hutchinson, but it was Hutchinson actually, as a matter of fact, because they were talking about how Mahomes was angry because he felt like he got dragged down a little bit late after the play. But that's what caused him to throw short on that pad, you know, on that throw, right? And the fact that, like, you were talking about the Brian Branch interception, Kadarius Toney, the perfect pass going right through, you know, his hands. Yes, that happened, you know. But exactly what you were talking about too. But the play was made on the other end. You know how easy it would have been for Brian Branch to drop that interception, and nobody would have said anything about it because it would, you know, it's a tough play. His whole momentum was going one way. He reaches back with one hand to catch the ball, right?
Yep.
Nobody would have said, "Oh, you know, like." I mean, it would have been like, "Oh, so close," but nobody would have been like, "Oh, that guy has stone hands" or whatever. Talking about Brian Branch, because you know he would have dropped that pass. But the plays were made on the defense when they were available to make, right? Like Lions did not. When the play was available to make, they made the play. Lions did, not the Chiefs. And I don't care about Kelsey being injured. I don't care about Jones not playing. Makes no difference to me whatsoever because you can only play the teams when they're on your schedule. Period. Right?
That's it.
I mean, no excuses. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear anything more about Kelsey. I don't want to hear anything more of Jones because the Chiefs know that the Lions run the schedule for months. If they were worried about the Lions and worried about Jones not being there, they would have paid the guy. Right?
Right.
If there was talk that Kelsey could have played today, but we're talking like it's still a game, right? Yep. But there was talk that Kelsey could have played against the Lions, but they were trying to be, you know, careful with him, and that's fine. I totally understand why they do that, right? Yeah. But the fact is, if he could have played, and they played him, right? Like, I mean, they had that option, I guess is what I'm saying, and they chose not to. That's not against the Lions.
Yeah. No.
So. Anyways, that's the part that just irritates me. Give the team credit. That's it. Yes. No ifs, ands, or buts. They won. Because guess what? Yeah. Lions also didn't have Emmanuel Mosley. You know, because he was injured, right? So he wasn't playing, and he's a starting cornerback, right? Yep. They didn't have Williams,
Jameson Williams,
right? No Jamo, right?
Yep.
But no.
Marvin Jones Jr. had his own Kadarius Toney moments yesterday.
First fumble of his career.
Of his career, people. Of his career. Right?
So,
He just... I mean, it wasn't as bad as Toney's, but, I mean, the fumble hurt, right? Because those were points that we left out on the field.
At least 3, but the way they were driving, I'd say 7. I think they would have scored.
Yeah, and but again, after that, the defense came back and said, "Hey, you know what? Because it could have been the same old Lions. Like, oh my God, here we go again." Mm-hmm. Right, and then just let whatever happen.
It could have been the same old Lions.
Yeah,
with them not getting the calls that you were talking about with the offensive line, right? They might have just said, like, "Hey, the refs are against us. We can't beat the team and the refs." Right? No, they fought through all of that.
That's right, with class. Right? Yeah. Like, they flagged Penei Sewell. I mean, the guy didn't, unless he said something, right? Unless there was a derogatory term that was used when the ref was pushing him away. I did not see anything in that interaction to where Sewell should have been penalized. Mm-hmm. Right? There was nothing physical that I saw other than him get up. He didn't push him. I didn't see him put his hands on it. Like, I'm trying to remember that as he got up. But the defender took him to the ground, right? And then as he got back up, Sewell said something, then he got shoved. Sewell got shoved again, right? Sewell says, okay, you want to play? Let's go play, right? Didn't get his hands up. Russ got over there, the players were there. But you're going to call him both?
Well,
So, in the end,
about
we
the-
beat you. We beat
What
you.
what about the tripping call? Right, same thing. You had like a non-call versus Detroit, but then they called Detroit for tripping, and it was tripping. I mean, whatever, right? But still a non-call, and then the very next series against Detroit, it's a call against Detroit.
Yeah. So, with that, look, David Montgomery got bulldozed, right?
Yeah,
Okay. So he's being flipped now. He's pushed down to his back, and he's still rolling. That momentum is still going that way. The guy is still trying to go up and around him. I could see why you want to call it tripping. Okay. But I didn't see, even at slow motion, I didn't see him try to push his leg out there. Right? I didn't. I just thought that was his momentum that was carrying him that way as he got his ass handed to him, for the lack of a better term, right? And it happens. But again, you're right. They make that call. Up until that false start in the fourth quarter, I think the Chiefs only had one penalty, right? And Detroit obviously had the big penalty, the pass interference that was 41 yards down the field, right? And it was close. It was close. And that slow speed, I saw it, right? He was there early. At live, I don't know that I saw it, right? It just looked like a really good play. But man, overall, we've been excited about the Lions all off season.
yeah.
We talked about them, right? We talked about the draft. We talked about what we were going to see, the hype behind it. And it would have been easy for the Lions to drop that game and it been a loss, right? And honestly, nobody would have been like, oh, okay, like, I can't believe they lost that game, right?
No.
But they fought through it and they stayed above it. They played their game, right? I still think some of the play calling was, you called it like they need to see who run it. And that was because it was in the fourth quarter. Trying to, before we punted and gave the ball back, or went for it on fourth down and gave the ball back to Mahomes. That series just before that, if the play action I think would have worked better, right? But they ran it 3 straight times, just trying to take the time off the clock, which I get, right? But you could have made a safe pass out to the flat, stayed in bounds, gained a few more yards because you're outside that mess. But, yeah, it was a heck of a game. Just a heck of a game. Very proud of the Lions. It was a well-deserved, hard-fought game. I mean, you got to think about, not only did they hold Kansas City to, they were 0-7 on third down in the second half. Kansas City scored 2 field goals. Right? So after going, because I was scared when Mahomes went down and scored right at half, knowing they were going to get the ball to start the second half, and after they scored 14-7, I was nervous.
Me too.
I was nervous.
Yep.
And you're right. The Lions came out and made just all the right changes that they needed to make. Right? They adjusted right where they needed it, and it just worked out for them. And like I said, I'm happy for the Lions. I'm happy for Lions fans. It is just one game. We've got, we can celebrate this for 3 days, and then we still have a week before we have to, we're going to prepare for the next week. It's 18 more weeks of this.
So, but I want to say one thing real quick about what you were talking about, going back to the play calling, because it wasn't just that drive for me. It was also the third quarter play calling. Like one thing I made a call out on the day before the game, I was talking about how I think the Lions will beat the Chiefs, and I said they're going to have to be able to run the ball and then use the play action. Like, and
Yep.
in the third quarter, they got away from running the ball. They had more passes than runs. They only had like 3 runs in like the third quarter, something like that. Like it was bad, anyways, as far as
Yeah.
I'm concerned. It's like I think, and there was a lot of quick 3-and-outs in the third quarter for the
In the
Lions.
third quarter.
So I did not like that so much because you're not going to win a shootout against Mahomes. I don't care who his wide receivers are. I just don't think you're going to do that.
Right.
So pull it back a little bit, get back to Lions football. And they did that in the fourth quarter. It's just that, the third quarter they did not, and they got away from it a little bit, and maybe a little worried
Yep.
because they weren't moving the ball.
Yeah.
So there was that. But aside from like the third quarter and maybe that one possession in the fourth quarter, they were able to move the ball pretty decently. Kansas City still put pressure on Detroit for the passing game. Goff was still being harassed.
Yep. He took some hits.
I would like to see a little better pass protection next game.
Yep. But the great thing that I saw from Goff was the poise,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like I never felt. Well, I don't know if I ever saw him feel rushed with trying to push the ball down the field,
Well, that
right?
fourth down play in the fourth quarter where they went for it, and that
He
ball
was-
got batted down.
Yeah.
Right? Like that time, like I think he was trying so hard to force the ball in somewhere. But I think if
Yeah.
he just would have looked, the whole left side of the field was open. He could have ran for the first down, easy.
Yeah.
There's nobody over there. So I think even though I agree with you 99%, I just think like if I had to pick out a play where I think that he felt a little hurried, a little rushed, was
Yeah.
that play because I think I think any
Yeah.
other time he would have pulled it down and ran that.
Yeah. You're right. That is the play, and I guess because of the way the defense came out and played so well, after that, like that play kind of went away in my memory, right?
Yeah.
And I liked what the announcer says. Do you punt and give Mahomes the ball in the 20 with 2 minutes left, where he can run the clock completely down on you, right? Or do you give it to him on your 45 and then, with that much time left? And I liked the call to go for it on fourth down, right? Again, I wasn't sure about the play calling during that because I think it didn't have to come down to the wire like that. We could have run the clock out.
Mm-hmm.
But, the Lions do like to make it interesting. So, but yeah, what a great way to start the 2023 Detroit Lions season by going into Kansas City and saying, I think, to me, you just put the NFL on notice.
100%.
We are not the same team that you have seen, that you have played. So be prepared because we will be.
It's time for me to eat a little humble pie. Because during that like the show before the game, my prediction was that Kansas City was going to win. Now, I also said that I don't think Lions overmatched, right? I also said that I wouldn't be surprised if the Lions won. I think it's a talented team, and I think they're well coached.
Right.
My biggest concern about the game, and I said it over and over again, was just that their starters did not play in the preseason, and how rusty are they going to be? And I think you've seen a lot of that rust, and even from the offensive line, allowing the pressure, not getting the pass blocking. You saw Jared Goff make some errant throws. He overthrew a couple receivers. there was some rust. And it was with everybody because, like, even Montgomery didn't play, Goff didn't play, offensive line didn't play. There was a lot of defensive players that didn't play, right? Like, and you've seen that rust. And I was more worried about the offensive rust than I was on the defensive side of the ball because it takes offense more time to get in sync.
Yes.
So that was why I thought Kansas City was going to win, not because I didn't think Detroit couldn't match them as far as talent goes. It was just specifically I didn't think they were going to be able to outscore them because of their offense. And to be fair, their offense only scored 14 points, right?
Right.
So, but I am, believe me, as I mentioned on the on the video, I'd love to be wrong if this was the case and Lions won, and they did. So I can't be any happier to be wrong.
Yep.
Lions won.
So
That's awesome.
I told my students Thursday before I left work, as we were walking out the door, and they were talking about the game, and I heard some kids talking in the halls. I says, the Detroit Lions will win by 3. And they all stopped and looked at me like, really? I'm like, 3 points. They're going to win by 3 points. I was a little off, but the W was there.
Yep.
So, in the end, I'll take a win however we get it. Like I said, there was adversity, and the Lions overcame, unlike some Lions teams in the past. And because of that, you see that maturity level in such a very young team, and that definitely goes to coaching.
Mm-hmm.
Coaching, to playing your position, doing your job, being where you need to be. And I think that the coaching staff has just drilled that into them and says, don't worry about whatever, just like you said, don't worry about what everybody else is saying. We're going to play our game, and we're going to keep out coming out. I know you probably didn't hear this, but they interviewed Coach Campbell playing out at halftime. And he didn't really even give the girl an opportunity to ask the question. He's like, let me just talk, because I know you're going to ask this about the defense, and blah, 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 and we just got to stop and do these things and stop Mahomes. And like, he knew what they were going to ask. He just was like, let's go. I'm trying to get back out here to the game, but, not to be rude, but here's what you want to hear. I'm going to move about my day.
Yeah. No, I didn't hear that. And I don't know if you saw the celebration in the locker room that got posted.
I did not.
So, okay, before I talk about that, there was one thing I did. I think I read, like, MLive or something, or 10-20 Min or something like that. They were, like, Campbell was basically saying, we got to get to the point to where, like, you guys from, like, Alabama or Georgia or Ohio State or whatever, right? You guys are from winning programs. Every day you woke up on Saturday, you knew you're going to win that game. Like, that's the mindset we got to get into here as Detroit Lions. And so you take that and then fast forward to the game after the game in the locker room, and Campbell, he just said, how many of you thought we were going to win this game, right? And everybody's like, oh yeah, and there's a big cheering, right? Like, they everybody on the Lions came in this game knowing they were going to win. And again, that's mindset. That's coaching. It is saying, like, that is, like, that's culture. We were talking about how you have to change the culture of the Lions from a losing culture to a winning culture, and that's the biggest battle. It's not getting the talent in here. We've had talent in here, right? Yeah. I mean, you go back even during the Millen eras. I mean, there was talent on the team, but they just couldn't win, and that was the culture.
I go back like the Wayne Fonts, like when they had those few good seasons, right? Because I think that's the last time they were in the playoffs. Wayne Fonts was the coach, right?
No, they missed the playoffs once. Otherwise, when they lost to Dallas on that stupid call.
Oh, yeah.
But even with that being said, right? Like, I mean, the reason I go to the Millen era is because that's when it gets really, really bad, Yes. And you still had talented people on the team. Not saying that they were all talented, but you had talented players though, and and you couldn't win. So it was a losing culture, and it took a lot of time to turn that around. Now guys are coming in to every single game going back to last year, we're going to win this
Yeah.
game. I know we're going to win this game. That is huge.
Yeah.
I can't stress enough, like that mindset and how much that mindset affects their ability to play well in the game. So that's
Marvin Jones wanted to come back to Detroit, right? From his seat in Jacksonville, he saw what the Lions were doing, and when the opportunity came about, that is where he wanted to go. Right? I know he did not have a great game, but that just tells me that when you have a veteran person, like a veteran guy like Marvin Jones, say, "Hey, I'm going to leave a team that has a possibility of making the playoffs in Jacksonville," because I think they're going to be that team this year, to come back to the Lions. That tells me something.
Well, did you hear this? We were talking, I think we mentioned in the podcast, but I think if we didn't, I know we talked about it. DeAndre Hopkins, right? We talked about the possibility of him coming to Detroit. Well, I guess that word got out yesterday that Detroit was one of the teams Hopkins wanted to come to. And his agent called Detroit asking about potentially getting a contract.
Huh?
They never called him back. So what I'm saying, though, is that's another guy wanting to come to Detroit, right?
Yes.
So that's a good feeling, man. You know, C.J. Gardner-Johnson, he probably had his pick of teams. He came to Detroit.
Yes.
You know, Sutton came to Detroit. Mosley came to Detroit. That revamped our secondary, right? So this is huge, man. This is huge.
It has. So, it's we everyone can sit there and say it's just one game, but you know what? We are 1-0. 1-0. Right?
Now we're playing Seattle next, right? So
Seattle's next week, I believe. Yep.
looking ahead, we got Seattle.
Look at the schedule. Seattle, yep. And you're at home for Seattle and not home for Atlanta.
Yep. And what I find interesting, though, is Kansas City. You know where Kansas City's going next?
Where are they going next?
Jacksonville.
Ooh.
So there's a chance that Kansas City starts 0-2.
0-2.
Yikes for them.
Yeah. But
with that being said about Kansas City, looking ahead towards Seattle, this is like a revenge game for Detroit, right? Because of what happened last year. Like,
that's right.
I really, really, really want to see this game. I'm pumped. Like, it's not even going to be tomorrow, right? I mean, or Sunday. Like, we still got another whole week after Sunday. But I'm pumped for it already because I want to see Detroit dismantle Seattle. I'm ready for it.
So it's gonna be a packed house in Detroit.
Oh yeah, it's gonna be loud.
Right? So whatever seats were still available, because you know how, like, you go out to LA and where the Rams and the Chargers play, right? It's almost as loud for the away team as it is for the home team.
Mm-hmm.
At some of these stadiums, right? I don't know if they're going to get as many fans. Like, it's sold. Detroit, Michigan came. We're ready.
Mm-hmm.
Season tickets sold. There's a waiting list for season tickets.
Yep.
I don't know. That's never happened at Ford Field. So yeah, Seattle's going to be a big. We're ready. Let's go get them.
Let's go get them.
Let's go get them.
But yeah, we have to do, another pregame show talking about Seattle once it gets a little bit closer. So everybody be looking for that. But look, this year could not have started better, and I'm excited, man. Like, this game really got me excited, really pumped me up. Like, one thing I did say in the last podcast was I want, like, Detroit has to play better, or Detroit has to play good football for more than half a year for me to buy in, right? Like, it's just because they haven't. But with a win like this, it's hard for me not to get excited. Like, I didn't want to. I wanted to stay, kind of neutral and objective because I just don't want that big letdown. But this game just really I love it. It got me pumped.
Yeah, my wife says, well, so the Lions came out and played, did they play more than half a game of football? And I'm like, she said they finally play a whole game of football. I'm like, well, maybe not a whole game, but it was 3 quarters, right? And the defense played well in the 3rd quarter, even when the offense wasn't doing well.
Yeah.
Right? So, we're going to give them about that 80% they played. So you keep going and you're playing 4 good quarters. Watch out, NFL.
Well,
if the Lions put 4 good quarters together every game on a set of games, that's a wrecking ball.
I know this is exactly what you're saying, but you didn't say it in these words, and I just want to put it in these words because I think it's powerful. All right, Lions went to Arrowhead, first game of the season, prime time, beat the Super Bowl champions, right? And they didn't even play their best game.
Right.
I mean, wow. Like, you can beat the defending Super Bowl champions at their house on opening day, basically, and not play your best game. That says a lot to me.
Not just the world champs, beat the reigning MVP.
That too. And and Super Bowl MVP.
That's right. So, I mean, just everybody keep that in mind. The Lions did not play their best game and still beat the world champs.
Yep. I think that says it all.
It does. Yeah. And now, Sundays, I'd like our fantasy football league started. So I want to, I don't know if you've logged in yet, next to taking a look at your team, but I'd like to maybe on our next one kind of talk about some fantasy football on our next show.
Yeah, let's do it. So, be on the lookout for that. We got fantasy football talk as well as a preview of the Seattle game coming up as well later on next week. So, be on the lookout. But we definitely appreciate you guys hanging out. Let us know in the comments. If you want to, like, subscribe. We appreciate it. Chat with us. Let us know. Find us on social media.
Yep.
All right. With that, we'll talk to you guys later. Have a good one.
Good night, guys.
Thanks for listening to No Pads Sports Talk. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single episode. While you're at it, help spread the word by leaving a rating and review wherever you listen to podcasts. Follow us on social media at No Pads Sports Talk.